Namo Amida Butsu. Today I'll continue with my reading of Understanding Jodo Shinshu by Reverend Professor Eiken Kobai Sensei. And I'll be picking up where I left off with part 1. That's kind of segment. I'll be reading segment 2 of part 1 today. It's not divided that way in the book. That's just my division with these readings, just for the sake of time in these videos. So again, continuing with part 1, where Eiken Kobai Sensei briefly describes the main events in the Venerable Master Shinran's life, his earnest search for truth, and his efforts to spread that truth to all all with whom he came in contact. So I'll just pick up where I left off. So, the Venerable Master Shinran's personal depth of reflection, quote unquote, Jiko Naikan, can be considered to have deepened greatly after being sent to a Chigo province and living the life of an exile. Since the introspection after Shinjin has been established, since the introspection, this is in parentheses, this part, since the introspection after Shinjin has been established is a function of, quote, Buddha-centered power, Shinjin, unquote, Tariki Shinjin, I have used a different term, personal depth of reflection, unquote, to refer to the contents of Shinran Shonen's spiritual life after that fundamental experience. And that's the end of the parenthesis there. The Venerable Master's marriage to Ashini Ko took place while he was exiled in Ichigo province. During that time, marriage was considered to be breaking one of the precepts that monks had to follow. The Venerable Master's determination to marry can be considered to have been made on the evening, quote, evening of the 5th day of the 4th month during the 3rd year of Kennen, unquote. The 3rd year of Kennen is 1203 AD, when he was 31 years of age. According to Godensho, that was when the Venerable Master had a dream in which Kanan Bosatsu told him, O doer of the Nembutsu, Gyoja. So let me just start that again. And this is Kanan Bosatsu speaking. O doer of the Nembutsu, if the conditions arise for you to be bound with a woman, I will transform myself into a woman as beautiful as a jewel and be your bride. I will serve you for your entire life and lead you to birth in the Pure Land when your life in this world comes to an end. This passage referred to as the Nyobon no Mokoku revelation of this passage is referred to as Nyobo no Mokoku, revelation of a monk's clandestine romance in a dream. Some scholars believe that this is what the Venerable Master heard from Shotoku Taishi in a dream at the age of 29, and was what caused him to visit Master Honen. The problem that confronted the Venerable Master at the age of 29, however, was how to resolve the problem of life and death, whether he should abandon the path of sages, the way of becoming enlightened solely through one's own efforts, and enter the Pure Land path, the way of becoming enlightened through reliance on Amida Buddha's vow. Accordingly, I believe that revelation about visiting Master Honen was a different text. Let me read that again. I believe that revelation about visiting Master Honen was a different text. I also believe that this revelation about marrying, and he's saying, when I'm saying revelation in the past two times, he's saying revelation in quotes. So I also believe that this revelation about marrying should be considered to have occurred several years after the Venerable Master became Master Honen's disciple. That would be when the Venerable Master was about 31 years of age. It was only then that he began considering the problem of marriage for a monk who follows the Pure Land path. If the problem of sex was uppermost in the Venerable Master's mind at the age of 29, he could have had a clandestine affair, as many monks at the time were doing. But one of the reasons the Venerable Master left Mount Hei was because the monks were not keeping the Buddhist precepts, among which is not engaging in sexual activities. I believe the Venerable Master determined to marry because of the revelation by Kuze Kanan of Rakokudo. Sorry, let me read that again. I believe the Venerable Master determined to marry because of the revelation of Kuze Kanan of Rakokudo. As indicated in the following passage from the Wago Toroku, a record of the light, Master Honen said that he should live in whatever way allows us to recite the Nembutsu. So let me read that again. The Master Honen, so as indicated in the following passage from Wago Toroku, a record of light, Master Honen said that we should live in whatever way allows us to recite Nembutsu. And this is the passage from that work. Recite the Nembutsu to get along in this world. It makes no difference what you do as long as it does not obstruct the reciting of the Nembutsu. If you cannot recite the Nembutsu by abandoning the world and becoming a monk, then take a wife. If you cannot recite the Nembutsu while married, then abandon the world. If you cannot recite Nembutsu while settled down, then recite while wandering from place to place. If you cannot recite Nembutsu while wandering, then become a householder. And that's the end of the passage. As indicated in the above passage, Master Honen said that if we cannot recite Nembutsu and remain celibate, then we should recite it while married. That if we cannot recite Nembutsu while married, we should recite it while celibate. Master Honen himself remained celibate all his life, but he did not say everyone should follow his example. The Venerable Master must have heard Master Honen say similar things, and very likely affirmed a married life for himself. The Venerable Master's spiritual life must have deepened while living the life of an exile in the deep snows of the remote area of Chigo province, surrounded by a wife and children, and associating with the people of that area. On the 17th day of the 11th month, during the first year of Kanryaku 1211 AD, when he was 39 years of age, and 5 years after reaching his place of exile, the Venerable Master and Master Honen were pardoned. The Venerable Master very likely intended to return to Kyoto, but on the 25th day of the first month of the next year, 1212 AD, just 2 months after their pardon notices, Master Honen passed away in Kyoto at the age of 80. The Venerable Master apparently gave up any thought of returning to Kyoto after learning of Master Honen's death. He remained in the Chigo province for some time after being pardoned, but during 1214 AD, when he was 42 years of age, he left that area with his wife and children for the Shinano province, present-day Nagano prefecture. He then moved to the town of Sanuki in the Kozuki province, present-day Guma Prefecture, and from there to Hitachi Province, present-day Ibaraki Prefecture. In Hitachi Province, the Venerable Master made towns such as Kojima and Inada his base, and spent the next 20 years spreading the Nembutsu teaching. This activity resulted in a large number of disciples and followers. He had about 80 direct disciples. He had about 80 direct disciples. If those who were disciples of his direct disciples are counted, however, his followers can be considered to have numbered in the tens of thousands. But as the Venerable Master is quoted as saying in the Tenisho, however, he did not consider himself to have any disciples. Quote, I, Shinran, do not have any disciples. The reason I do not is because people recite Nembutsu through the workings of Amida Buddha, and not because of any efforts on my part. It is thus ridiculous to refer to those who recite the Nembutsu as, quote-unquote, my disciples, unquote. The Venerable Master said he did not have any disciples because people do not recite Nembutsu because of him, but because of Amida Buddha's primal vow. Referring to such people as his disciples is therefore preposterous. Further, since all are disciples of the Buddha, he considered them to be friends, Andabo, who walk the same path, Andogyo. Let me read that last sentence again. Further, since all are disciples of the Buddha, he considered them to be, quote-unquote, friends, Andobo, who, quote-unquote, walk the same path, Andogyo. There is a well-known story about the Venerable Master's encounter with an ascetic named Benin of Mount Itajiki during this time. Because of the Venerable Master's dedicated efforts in the Hitachi area, the number of people who devoted themselves to the Nembutsu increased. This caused Benin to become jealous, and he determined to kill the Venerable Master. Benin lay in wait on Mount Itajiki, where he knew the Venerable Master would pass on his missionary travels, but was never able to be there when the Venerable Master walked by. Benin became increasingly frustrated at being unable to harm the Venerable Master, and finally determined to attack the Venerable Master's hermitage in Ananda. The moment Benin saw the Venerable Master's calm and composed face, however, his evil intent disappeared. Benin wept tears of repentance and became the Venerable Master's disciple on the spot. The Venerable Master gave Benin a new name, Myohobo. In the Godensho, Master Kakunyo relates this incident in the following way. Quote, because he could not meet the Venerable Master Shinran as he desired, he went to the Venerable Master's home and was met cordially. The moment he saw the Venerable Master's sacred face, his evil intent disappeared completely, and he could only repent. This person was Myoho, the name given him by the Venerable Master Shinran. Burning with hatred towards the Venerable Master and with the determination to kill him, Benin attacked the Venerable Master's hermitage with a sword, a bow, and an arrow. But the composure with which the Venerable Master met Benin, even though the Venerable Master had no warning that he would be attacked, caused Benin to stop in his tracks. The Venerable Master Shinran's gentle expression caused Benin to realize what a truly sacred person the Venerable Master was. Benin deeply repented how mistaken he had been in intending to kill the person standing before him, and immediately became the Venerable Master's disciple. The Venerable Master is said to have been 49 years of age then, and Benin 42. if that last sentence was a part of the of the quote or not, because the way it's the version that I'm looking at doesn't have an end quote there, so I'm not sure where that ends. So I'll just read that again, saying I don't know if this is part of that quote or not, and then continue on. The Venerable Master is said to have been 49 years of age then, and Benin 42. A poem carved on a rock on Mount Itajiki, a poem carved in a rock on Mount Itajiki that Benin Myobo is said to have composed in later years expresses the Venerable Master's sacred character that converted even a person who was intent on killing him. And here's the poem. The mountains remain the same, as do the trees and streams. All that has changed is my heart. End of the poem portion there. The Venerable Master is considered to have started work on his major literary work, the Jodo Shinshu, teaching practice Shinjin and attainment, during the first year of Genin, 1224 AD, when he was about 52 years of age. The complete title of his work is Ken Jodo Shinjitsu Kyogosho Monrui. Passages in which the true teaching, practice, and attainment in the Pure Land are revealed. At least a draft of this work is considered to have been completed by the time he was 75 years of age, but there is evidence that he kept revising it until he was about 85 years of age. The Jodo Shinshu is a major work that is divided into 6 chapters. Chapter on teaching, chapter on practice, chapter on Shinjin, chapter on attainment, chapter on true Buddha land, and chapter on transformed Buddha land. It is a very difficult work written in Kambun, the Chinese way of writing Chinese, but it describes the Jodo Shinshu teaching very clearly. At the end of this work, the Venerable Master confesses his joy at being in the embrace of Amida Buddha's primal vow. Quote, "What a joy to place my mind in the soil of the Buddha's universal vow and let my thoughts flow into the sea of the marvelously mysterious Dharma. I deeply acknowledge the Tathagata's compassion and sincerely appreciate the Master Honen's benevolence in instructing me. My feeling of indebtedness grows as my joy increases. I have therefore expressed the essentials of the true teaching, Shinshu, by collecting important passages on the Pure Land. I can think only of the Buddha's deep benevolence and care not the least about the abuses of others. May those who read this eventually attain the serene Shinjin of the vow power, either by the cause of faithful obedience or by the condition of doubt and abuse, and realize supreme fruition in the land of serene sustenance." After expressing his joy at being embraced within the primal vow, the Venerable Master states that those with Shinjin are, of course, included, but he hopes that the doubts of those without Shinjin will become the condition for them to accept his primal vow. His greatest wish is for even one more person to become aware of the saving grace of the primal vow and attain true happiness. The Shoshinge, hymn of true Shinjin, that is chanted daily in Jodo Shinshu households throughout Japan, is found at the end of the chapter on faith of the Jodo Shinshu. The Venerable Master returned to Kyoto from the Kanto area during 1232 AD, first year of Joei, at about the age of 60. In Kyoto, it's much In Kyoto, with its much greater resources of Buddhist materials, the Venerable Master completed work on his Jodo Shinshu. He wrote many other works that are indispensable for a detailed understanding of the Jodo Shinshu teaching. They include Jodo Monrui Jusho, a collection of passages on the Pure Land; Gutoku Sho, Notes of an Ignorant Short-Haired One; Niyushitsu Nimange, Hymns on Entering and Leaving the Twin Gates; Jodo Wasan, the Japanese poems on Pure Land; Koso Wasan, Japanese poems on eminent monks; Shozo Matsu Wasan, Japanese poems on the three periods of the true semblance and decay of the Dharma; Kotaishi Shotoku Hosan, the practice of Prince Shotoku; Dai Nihan Kokuzoko Sano Shotoku Taishi Hozan, in praise of Shotoku Taishi, the Kokuzoku Sano of the great country of Japan; Yishinsho Moni, Essence of Faith Alone; Achinen Tanen Moni, Notes on one reciting and the many recitations; Songo Shinzo Meinmon, collection of comments on the objects of reverence; Jodo Sangyo Ojo Monrui, passages on birth in the Pure Land based on the three Pure Land Sutras; Nyorai Nishu Eko Mon, the two types of Amida Buddha's merit transferences; and Mida Nyorai Myogo Tuko, the virtue of Amida Buddha's name. Apologies for my very terrible pronunciation of the Japanese for those works. In addition to the above, the Venerable Master wrote many letters to his disciples and followers who remained in the Kanto area, further explaining the teachings of Jodo Shinshu. These letters were later collected and published under titles such as Matasho, Light of the Latter Ages, and Gosho Soku Sho, Collection of the Honorable Letters. Again, apologies for my terrible Japanese pronunciation. With all his literary activities, the Venerable Master must have been very busy in Kyoto. One great disappointment of the Venerable Master's later years must have been having to disown his own son, Zenron. This came about because misunderstandings of his teachings began to grow among the people who remained in the Kanto area. One of the misunderstandings was that since Amida Buddha's primal vow states that everyone, except those who commit the 5 perversities, who recites the Nembutsu will be born in the Pure Land, i.e., that as long as you recite the Nembutsu, it is all right to have even committed wrong deeds. The technical term for this wrong attitude is Zoaku Muji. Let me just make sure I've read that correctly, that paragraph. One of the misunderstandings was that since Amida Buddha's primal vow states that everyone, except those who commit the 5 grave perversities, who recites Nembutsu, will be born in the Pure Land, i.e., that as long as you recite the Nembutsu, it is all right to have to even commit wrong deeds. The technical term for this wrong attitude is zoaku mugi, or mugi, zoaku mugi. Another misunderstanding is just the opposite of zoaku mugi, and that is, although the primal vow assures our birth in the Pure Land, that does not mean we need to do anything to be born there. Rather, it means that we must continually endeavor to do good. This misunderstanding, in the opposite direction, is referred to as Senjuken Zen. When the Venerable Master was about 80 years of age, he sent his son Zenron to the Kanto province in order to correct these misunderstandings. Unfortunately, this turned out to be a very difficult task, and the work did not seem to go forward smoothly. As time went on, it seems that Zenron developed the ambition to gain control of the organization in the Kanto area. In order to increase his influence and authority, Zenron began promulgating what is now known as the quote-unquote secret tradition of wrong views, Mitsuden Igi. Zenron told the people in the Kanto area that he was taught. Zenron told the people in the Kanto area that he was taught by his father secretly late one night, and that he was the only person in the Kanto area who knew the true teaching. This was, of course, completely untrue, for the Venerable Master always taught the same thing openly to everyone. The actual teaching that Zenron claimed to have learned from the Venerable Master is not known. However, the letter that the Venerable Master wrote to disown Zenron contains the following passage, quote, "You say the 18th vow, the primal vow, is nothing more than a faded flower that must be discarded," unquote. This indicates Zenron denied the saving power of the absolute Buddha-centered power, Zettai Tariki, of the 18th vow, and that he seems to have said that we must concentrate on performing acts which, in the era of Senjuku Zen, in other words, rather than relying on Buddha-centered power, Zenron seems to have urged self-centered power to attain birth in the Pure Land. I'm going to read that again, because with all the quotes and again, apologies for my Japanese pronunciation, I'm going to read that whole paragraph again. The actual teaching that Zenron claimed to have learned from the Venerable Master is not known. However, the letter that the Venerable Master wrote to disown Zenron contained the following passage, quote, "You say that the 18th vow, the primal vow, is nothing more than a faded flower to be discarded," unquote. This indicates that Zenron denied the saving power of the absolute Buddha-centered power, Zettai Tariki, of the 18th vow, and that he seems to have said that we must concentrate on performing good acts, which is the error of Juken Zen. In other words, rather than relying on Buddha-centered power, Zenron seems to have urged self-centered effort to attain birth in the Pure Land. Sending Zenron to straighten out the misunderstandings among his followers in Kanto area did not seem to have much effect. Rather, it seemed to have resulted in disturbances breaking out among his followers. When the Venerable Master learned that the leader of those who misunderstood his teachings was his own son, we today probably cannot begin to imagine the Venerable Master's disappointment then. In a letter addressed to Zenron dated the 29th day of the 5th month during 1256 AD, 8th year of Kencho, when the Venerable Master was 84 years of age, he expressed his sorrow in the following words, quote, The deepest of regrets. I no longer consider myself to be your father, and you to be my son. Sorrowfully, I state this before the three treasures of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Unquote. There are many scholarly opinions regarding the reasons the reasons the Venerable Master for the Venerable Master disowning Zenran. Many believe it was because Zenran conspired to gain power over the Kanto followers, but I do not consider that to be the primary reason. In the letter in which the Venerable Master disowned Zenran, he wrote, I regret those in the Rokuhara, quote, I regret that those in the Rokuhara and Kamakura areas have heard that I disowned you like this, but the fact that I have to do so is something that cannot be helped. What is much more important is that you have misled those in the Hitachi and Shinozuki areas regarding the importance of birth in the Pure Land of ultimate joy. Here the Venerable Master says that while it is regrettable that those in the Rokuhara and Kamakura areas learned that he disowned his son, that happens frequently in this world, and so cannot be helped. Misleading others, however, is truly regrettable. Even more than conspiring with those in authority, the main reason Zenran was disowned seems to be because he twisted the most important teaching of birth in the Pure Land of ultimate joy. I believe that here, where he went so far as to disown his own beloved son in order to preserve the true teaching, we have a glimpse into we have a glimpse into the Venerable Master's truly sacred mind and heart. Although he encountered heartbreaking sorrow, such as having to disown his own son, the Venerable Master spent his entire life spreading the precious Nembutsu teaching. The Venerable Master Shinran passed away on the 20th day of the 11th lunar month during 1263 AD, second year of Kocho, at the age of 90. The date of his passing has been converted to January 16th of the Western calendar. He is said to have spent his last hours at a temple called Zenbo-in, located in Kyoto. In the Godensho, his last moments are described in the following way. Without speaking of worldly matters at all, he expressed his deep indebtedness to the Buddha by reciting the sacred name, the Nembutsu, without cease. As can be determined by this passage, so that was the end of that passage, I guess. Sorry, so the passage, I'll just read that again. Putting quotes in this time. In the Godensho, his last moments are described in the following way, quote, without speaking of worldly matters at all, he expressed his deep indebtedness to the Buddha by reciting the sacred name, the Nembutsu, without cease. End quote. As can be determined by this passage, the Venerable Master left this world expressing gratitude by reciting the Nembutsu. In the Gaija Sho, Notes on Correcting Mistaken Views, written by the Venerable Master's grandson, Master Kakunyo, during 1337 AD, the Venerable Master's last words are said to be, quote, when I close my eyes for the last time, please place my remains in Kamo River to nourish the fish, end quote. In the Hanazono Bunko Anthology of Flowery Passages, a work published in 1847, the Venerable Master's deathbed text is said to be, quote, my life is coming to an end, and though my life is coming to an end, and though I am said to be going to the Pure Land of ultimate joy, I am like the waves of Waka Bay that ceaselessly break on the shore. Where there is one who rejoices in the Nambutsu, consider there to be two. Where there are two who rejoice, consider there to be three. That third person will be me, Shinran. And then a poem, quote, like Wakabe, the Dharma will remain even when I am no longer here. The Dharma will remain constant, as long as there are those in need of it, unquote, for the poem. I believe the Venerable Master's love of all living things and his earnest desire that the teaching that saves all beings impartially will spread widely is clearly shown in these passages. The deathbed text, published many centuries after the Venerable Master's passing, the quote-unquote deathbed text was published many centuries after the Venerable Master's passing, so many consider it to be a forgery. I believe, however, that it expresses the Venerable Master's compassionate mind and heart that desires the salvation of all living things very well. So that is the end of part 1 before we go on to chapter 1. So I will end this video here. Thank you for listening. And again, apologies for my terrible Japanese pronunciation. Namo Amida Butsu.